Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we're diving into a fascinating philosophical debate that has been raging for centuries, the nature of God. We'll be exploring the contrasting views of two giants of 17th century rationalism, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz and Baruch Spinoza. Could you give us a quick overview of the historical context that shaped these thinkers?
Absolutely. The 17th century was a time of incredible intellectual upheaval. The scientific revolution, with its discoveries by Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton, challenged traditional views of the universe and humanity's place within it. This, combined with the rise of rationalism, led to a renewed focus on reason as the primary source of knowledge. This was the fertile ground where both Leibniz and Spinoza developed their philosophical systems. They were both trying to reconcile reason and faith in a world that was rapidly changing, a world where the old certainties were being questioned and new ways of understanding the universe were emerging.
That's fascinating. So both philosophers were trying to reconcile reason and faith in a world that was rapidly changing. But what were the key concepts they used to frame their arguments?
To understand their contrasting views, we need to define some key terms. First, there's the concept of substance. In metaphysics, this refers to the fundamental reality that exists independently. Think of it like the essence of something. Leibniz believed in an infinite number of substances which he called monads. These are self-sufficient, indivisible entities, each representing a unique perspective on the universe. Imagine each monad as a tiny, self-contained universe, with its own individual experiences and perceptions. Think of it like a drop of water, self-contained but also part of the larger ocean of existence. Spinoza, however, argued for a single substance, which he identified with God. This substance is infinite, eternal, and possesses infinite attributes, of which we can only perceive two, thought and extension.
So Leibniz saw the universe as made up of countless individual monads, while Spinoza saw it as a unified whole with God as the ultimate substance.
That's quite a difference.
Can you give us an example of how this plays out in our everyday world?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're looking at a beautiful sunset. For Leibniz, each individual monad, including yourself, would have a unique perception of that sunset. One monad might focus on the colors, another on the shapes of the clouds, and another on the feeling of warmth. For Spinoza, the sunset itself is a manifestation of God, and our individual perceptions are just different aspects of that unified whole.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. Another key concept is attribute. Could you explain that for us?
For Spinoza, attributes are the essential properties of a substance, defining its nature. He argued that God, as the one substance, possesses infinite attributes, but we can only grasp a few. These attributes are not simply qualities of God, but rather constitute the very essence of God's being. Think of it like a diamond. It has many facets, but we can only see a few at a time. Similarly, God has infinite attributes, but our human understanding is limited to a few of those facets.
It sounds like these concepts are crucial to understanding their arguments about God. Could you break down their differing views on the nature of God?
Certainly. Leibniz, known for his optimistic view of the universe as the best possible world, presented a theistic view of God. He believed that God is a perfect being, distinct from the universe, and the creator of all that exists. He argued that God's perfection entails necessary existence, meaning that God's existence is not contingent on anything else. This led him to believe that God created the universe, and that it's the best possible world, even if it contains evil.
So, for Leibniz, God is a personal being who created the universe, and everything is ultimately for the best. But how does he explain the existence of evil?
That's a very important question. Leibniz's optimistic view faces a challenge with the existence of evil. He argued that evil is a necessary consequence of free will, and that it's ultimately outweighed by the greater good of a world where individuals have the freedom to choose. Think of it like a game. If you want to have the freedom to make your own choices, you also have to accept the possibility of making mistakes.
That's a fascinating way to think about it, but Spinoza, known for his pantheism, offered a very different perspective. Could you explain his view?
Spinoza argued that God is identical with the universe and everything in it. He believed that God, as the one substance, possesses infinite attributes and is the cause of everything that exists. This led him to conclude that God is not a separate being, but rather the very essence of all existence. Think of it like a wave. The wave is a part of the ocean, but it's also a manifestation of the ocean's power and movement. Similarly, everything in the universe is a part of God, but it's also a manifestation of God's infinite power and being.
Wow, that's a very different view of God. But how does Spinoza address the problem of evil?
Spinoza's pantheism raises questions about human freedom and responsibility. If God is identical with the universe, then everything is ultimately determined by God's will. However, Spinoza argued that true freedom comes from understanding the necessary laws of nature, which are ultimately expressions of God's will. He believed that by understanding these laws, we can act in accordance with them and achieve a sense of inner peace and harmony.
So, both views face challenges when it comes to explaining the existence of evil. It seems like their differing views on God also lead to different approaches to reason. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, their approaches to reason were quite different. Leibniz favored a more deductive approach, starting from clear premises and deriving conclusions through logical inference. Spinoza, however, relied on a more axiomatic method, laying down fundamental principles and drawing conclusions from them. This difference in approach reflects their contrasting philosophical styles and ultimately contributes to the divergent conclusions they reach.
That's a great point. So, the differing views on God and reason have sparked centuries of debate. What are some of the major critiques they've faced? And how are their ideas still relevant today?
Both philosophers have faced significant critiques. Leibniz's concept of established harmony, for example, has been criticized for its lack of empirical evidence. Critics argue that it's difficult to see how a established harmony could account for the apparent randomness and unpredictability of the world. Spinoza's pantheism has been challenged for its potential to undermine human freedom and moral responsibility. Critics argue that if God is identical with the universe, then human actions are merely manifestations of God's will, leaving no room for genuine free will and moral choice.
It sounds like the debate between Leibniz and Spinoza is far from settled. Their contrasting views on the nature of God have left a lasting impact on philosophical and theological thought. To summarize, Leibniz saw God as a separate, perfect being who created the best possible universe, while Spinoza saw God as the universe itself with infinite attributes. Both philosophers faced challenges explaining the existence of evil, but their ideas can continue to inspire debate and discussion today. Thank you for shedding light on this fascinating debate.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to discuss these two influential thinkers and their enduring legacy.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us. We hope you found this exploration of the nature of God thought-provoking.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking truth. Goodbye.